I was removed from the fields and brought into the house to protect a child from a danger no one would name. The master avoided my eyes while explaining my duty, and I understood immediately that I was not chosen for trustworthiness, but for expendability, positioned as a shield between his daughter and a threat he knew existed, but refused to confront directly. I studied the house and discovered that fear lived there instead of safety. I heard footsteps in hallways at night that did not belong, slow, deliberate steps that stopped outside her door, tested the handle, then retreated when they heard me moving in the adjacent room. I began locking doors that were usually open and positioning myself where any path to her chamber had to cross through me first. Servants whispered and stopped when I entered, because they all knew what I was protecting against, even though no one would speak it aloud. The master summoned me, confused by resistance he could not name, and demanded to know why I was disrupting household routines, but he could not punish me for protecting his daughter too well without revealing that my vigilance was inconvenient for reasons he dared not acknowledge. This testimony belongs to the Chronicles of Kofia Living Archive of truths that were never meant to survive. If you will stand as witness to what happens when conscience meets bondage in a hallway at night, mark this testimony so it endures. Signal that you recognize the cost of choosing right over safe. Speak below about the weight of protection that no one will acknowledge. The confrontation came during the 11th week when footsteps approached with purpose, and I stood in the doorway refusing to move until dawn broke, and the threat dissolved without violence, because creating the disturbance necessary to move me would cost more than withdrawing. I was reassigned to the fields immediately afterward, not punished for what I did, but removed for what I revealed about their willful complicity. I protected a child at the cost of everything but my conscience, and that choice defined me more than bondage ever could. So I ask you now, when standing between harm and innocence means sacrificing your own safety, is obedience to masters more sacred than duty to what is right? I am removed from the fields and brought closer to the house on a morning that feels no different from any other until it changes everything. The overseer calls my name. He points toward the main house. He says nothing else. I walk across the yard with soil still on my hands and sweat still drying on my back. The distance between the field and the house is perhaps 200 yards. I have crossed it before carrying tools or messages, but I have never been summoned without clear purpose. I observe how the master avoids my eyes while explaining my new duty. He stands on the porch. He looks past me toward the fields, toward the sky, toward anywhere except directly at my face. You will care for my daughter, he says. Keep her safe. Accompany her during the day. Sleep in the room adjacent to hers at night. His voice is flat, matter of fact, as if he's assigning me to tend livestock rather than his child. Yes, sir, I say. No memory comes yet, only calculation. I calculate what this means. Why me? Why now? What danger requires a field worker to become a guardian? What threat exists that servants already in the house cannot address? The answers do not come immediately, but questions multiply. I step across a boundary I did not choose, from field to house, from labor to proximity, from anonymity to visibility. The white man thinks proximity means trust. He is wrong. Proximity means surveillance works both directions. I study the interior of the house over the first days. Doors, shadows, sounds that emerge after dusk. The house is large. 3 floors, many rooms, hallways that connect in patterns that take time to learn. I note which doors lock from inside, which windows open easily, which stairs creak, which hallways carry sound and which absorb it. I notice fear lives here, not safety. Despite the fine furniture and clean floors, the fear is quiet, hidden, but present. I see it in how the mistress checks locks twice, in how servants avoid certain hallways after dark, and how the master drinks more than he eats at dinner. Something is wrong in this house, something beyond the wrongness of slavery itself, a specific wrongness that explains why I am here. I begin mapping movement patterns in silence, watching who goes where and when. The master retires early but wakes often. I hear his footsteps above me at irregular hours. The mistress stays in her chambers most evenings. The house servants finish their work and disappear to their quarters quickly, lingering nowhere. The house teaches me its rhythm, like a song I must learn without being taught the words. In my land, this meant preparation. Before hunts, we studied animal patterns, where they drank when they fed their ensemble, which paths they preferred. Knowledge preceded action. Understanding preceded success. I am hunting understanding now. Hunting the reason I am here. Hunting the threat that dare not speak its name. I meet the child under my care on my third day in the house. She is 8 years old, small for her age. Blonde hair, tied with ribbons. A dress that is clean and pressed and too formal for a child at play. She looks at me with curiosity, not fear. "Are you my new guardian?" she asks. "Yes, miss." I say, "What is your name?" I tell her the name I was given here. Not my true name. The name assigned to me at purchase. She repeats it carefully, trying to pronounce it correctly. I observe her innocence and feel it become a weight, not a privilege. She is a child, innocent of the system that owns me, unaware of the danger that brought me into her proximity, trusting in a way that children trust before the world teaches them not to. Her trust becomes my burden, not because I want to harm her, I do not, but because protecting her means protecting the interests of those who enslave me, means serving a system I despise, means choosing between conscience and consequence. A memory flickers. My younger cousin in Ashanti left in my watch during a village gathering. I was 12. She was 5. My aunt asked me to watch her while the adults discussed harvest disputes. I took the responsibility seriously. I kept her close. I kept her safe. I brought her back to my aunt unharmed. That memory was simple, pure. I protected her because she was family, because it was right, because no complexity existed between the duty and the doing. This is different. This child is not my family. This duty is not freely given. This protection serves masters I did not choose. The past brushes the present, then retreats, leaving only the weight. I observe over the following week how the master watches from a distance. He does not interact with his daughter much. He does not ask about her day. He does not play with her, or read to her, or show affection in ways. I remember father showing affection in my village, but he watches from windows, from doorways, from across rooms. His concern is reputation, not protection. I realize as the pattern becomes clear, he worries how things appear, whether proper protocols are followed, whether anyone can accuse him of negligence or impropriety. But he does not worry about her happiness, her safety in the deep sense, her well-being beyond the superficial. I begin to understand the true reason I was chosen for this duty, not because I am trustworthy, not because I am skilled with children, but because I am expendable. Because if something happens, if danger am the one who will bear consequences while his reputation remains protected. I am a buffer, a shield, a sacrifice position between his daughter and whatever threat he fears but will not name. Suspicion replaces uncertainty in my understanding. There is a specific threat, a specific danger, something he knows about but cannot or will not address directly. And I am here to stand between that danger and his child without being told what the danger is or how to actually protect against it. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there, heavy, solid, real. A reminder of my uncle who taught me that protection requires understanding what you are protecting against. But I do not understand yet. I only suspect, I only calculate. I only watch. I notice servants whisper and stop when I enter rooms during my second week in the house. The pattern is consistent. I approach the kitchen. Voices murmur in urgent tones. I step through the door. Silence. I walk past servants in hallways. They lean close to each other, speaking quietly. I come within hearing. They separate and continue walking as if no conversation occurred. I learn what is not said is more dangerous than what is spoken. Spoken things can be confronted, denied, clarified, but unspoken things grow in the silence. They become larger, more threatening, more powerful than they might be if brought into light. The servants know something. All of them. They share knowledge I am excluded from. Whether by design or by my newness to the house, I cannot tell. I begin listening more than moving, paying attention to fragments I can catch. After dark, won't say nothing. The girl don't know. Been happening for pieces, fragments. Enough to confirm danger exists, not enough to understand its shape. Information becomes my first weapon against whatever is coming. In my land, warriors prepared for battle with weapons, but hunters prepared for a difficult prey with information. Knowing the animal's habits mattered more than the sharpness of the spear. I am hunting information now, piece by piece, fragment by fragment, building understanding from whispers and silences. Night sounds reveal footsteps that do not belong during my 3rd week in the house. I sleep in a small room adjacent to the child's chamber. The door between our rooms stays open. I am meant to hear if she wakes or calls out, but I hear other things too. Footsteps in the hallway outside, slow, deliberate, stopping outside her door. Not servants on legitimate errands. Not the mistress checking on her daughter. Not the master making rounds. Different footsteps. Heavier. Pausing too long. Testing the door handle. Finding it locked. Moving on. The pattern repeats. Not every night, but often enough to be deliberate, to be intentional, to be the threat I was brought here to stand against. A memory triggers. Elders' warning that danger announces itself softly before striking hard. In my village, we were taught to recognize warning signs. Animals behaving strangely before storms. Changes in wind patterns before raids. Shifts in how people spoke before betrayals. Danger rarely arrives without warning, but the warnings are often quiet. Easy to miss if you are not paying attention. Easy to dismiss if you do not want to believe. I adjust where I stand and when I breathe, becoming more vigilant. I position myself so I can see the hallway through the cracked door. I sleep lighter. I wake at smaller sounds. I become a barrier between the child and whatever approaches her door at night. Vigilance becomes constant, exhausting, but necessary. The white man thinks I am here to watch the child. He is right, but I am also watching for him, or for whoever he fears but will not name, or for whatever danger he knows exists but refuses to confront directly. I realized during the 4th week that obedience here could cause irreversible harm. The pattern is now clear. The footsteps come. The door is tested. I position myself to be heard moving in my room. The footsteps retreat. I am preventing something, but prevention is not resolution. The threat remains. It adapts. It waits. And I begin to understand that simple obedience staying in my room. Protecting the child through passive presence might not be enough, might fail, might result in harm I could have prevented if I had acted differently. But action means risk, means stepping beyond my assigned role, means confronting power I am not supposed to confront. I test small acts of presence being seen without confrontation. I begin leaving my door more obviously open. I walk the hallway at irregular hours. I make my presence known through movement and sound and visibility. I position myself where paths must cross if someone intends to approach the child's room. Not blocking, not confronting, just being present, being seen, being an obstacle that must be navigated around or through. Tension tightens in the house, but nothing breaks yet. The master watches me more closely. Servants whispered more urgently. The footsteps come less frequently, but do not stop entirely. Something is building. Pressure accumulating. A confrontation approaching that I cannot fully predict or control. I do not forget. I never forget. Not the sounds. Not the patterns. Not the moment I understood that keeping this child safe might require me to disobey, to act beyond my assignment, to choose protection over compliance. I identify the master's fatal flaw during the 5th week. He believes ownership equals control. He owns me. Therefore, he believes he controls me, controls my actions, controls my loyalties, controls my choices. He believes that, because he commands me to protect his daughter, I will do so according to his unstated terms, that I will be passive, reactive, a barrier, but not an actor. He underestimates conscience. He does not understand that some duties transcend ownership, that some responsibilities exist independent of who commands them, that protecting the child is not the same as protecting property or reputation. I decide I will act only if forced, but I will act, not for him, not out of obedience, but because a child's safety matters, regardless of whose child she is or who owns the person protecting her. The white man thinks ownership determines loyalty. He's wrong. Conscience determines loyalty, and my conscience belongs to me, not to him. The night approaches when this understanding will be tested. An unexpected late hour disturbance breaks routine during the 6th week. I am awake, as I often am now, listening. The house is quiet. The child sleeps. The normal sounds of night surround me. Then footsteps, different from before, faster, more certain, not testing, not hesitating, approaching with purpose. I feel the house hold its breath around me. The servants are asleep or pretending to be. The mistress is in her chambers. The master is somewhere I cannot see. And the footsteps approach the child's door with intention that cannot be mistaken. Memory stirs. My father's voice warning of moments that decide a man. He told me when I was young that some moments separate childhood from adulthood. Moments when you must choose. When you cannot hide behind others' decisions or claim ignorance or delay until circumstances decide for you. You will know the moment when it comes, he said. Your body will know before your mind. Trust what you feel. Act from what is right, not from what is safe. This is that moment. I feel it in my chest, in my hands, and the weight settling over me like my father's hand on my shoulder years ago in a village that no longer exists. I do not move yet, not because I am, but because I am calculating, understanding, preparing for what must come. I observe fear ripple through servants without words the next morning. They know something happened. They do not know what, but they sense it. They see it in how the master avoids the upper floor, in how the mistress stays in her chambers, in how I am watched more carefully. I recognize a test is coming, not of loyalty, of something else, of how far I can be pushed, of what I will accept, of whether I will speak or stay silent. I reposition myself without drawing attention throughout the day. I stay closer to the child. I make myself more visible in hallways. I ensure that anyone approaching her must see me first, must acknowledge my presence, must make a choice about whether to proceed. Silence becomes strategy more deliberately now. I speak little. I answer questions with minimal words. I give no indication of what I know or suspect or have decided. The white man thinks silence means ignorance. He is wrong. Silence means control. Control over what is revealed, and when, and to whom. In my land, this meant wisdom. The elders spoke less than the young warriors. The griots chose when to share stories and when to withhold them. Those who controlled information controlled power. I control the information of my own observations, my own intentions, my own readiness to act. A memory fully triggers during the 7th week. Guarding life is a sacred duty, not a command. I am watching the child play in the garden under my supervision. She is innocent, laughing, unaware of the darkness that circles this house. And I remember my uncle teaching me about protection, not in the context of slavery, in the context of our village, of community, of shared responsibility for each other's safety. Protection is sacred, he said, not because someone commands it, but because life itself is sacred. When you stand between harm and another person, you honor something larger than yourself. You honor the principle that life deserves defending. Protection does not require permission from authority. It requires only conscience and courage. I understand what must be done and what must not. I must protect this child, not because her father owns me, not because I was commanded, but because she is a child, and children deserve protection from harm, regardless of any other consideration. But I must not harm in the protecting, must not become the danger I am preventing, must not let rage or vengeance turn protection into violence. I prepare with our tools or witnesses. I do not need weapons. I need presence, awareness, readiness, the willingness to stand between threat and child regardless of cost. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there, heavier now, heavy with the weight of decision, of commitment, of understanding that I have crossed from calculation to choice. I create obstacles using ordinary order-locked doors, redirected paths during the 8th week. I begin locking doors that are usually left unlocked. Not obviously, not in ways that draw attention. Just small changes to routine. The door between the child's room and the hallway. I ensure it is locked from inside before she sleeps. The door at the end of the hallway. I lock it in the evening, forcing anyone approaching from that direction to take a different, longer route. The door to the servants' stairs. I ensure it creaks now by slightly loosening a hinge. Early warning of approach. Nothing appears unusual to casual observation. Just a servant being careful, being thorough, following routines that might have always existed or might be new but are not questioned because they appear reasonable. I exploit routine to disguise intent. The white man thinks routine is mindless. He is wrong. Routine can be weaponized, can be adjusted, can be used to create barriers that appear natural while serving strategic purposes. The plan remains invisible because it looks like obedience while functioning as resistance. I am following orders to protect the child. I am just interpreting those orders more broadly than the master intended. I am just being more thorough than he expected. I am just taking my duty more seriously than he imagined possible. And in that gap between what he intended and what I am doing lies my agency, my choice, my power. That is when I know I have found the space where I can act without being seen acting, where I can protect without being acknowledged as protector, where I can resist without being recognized as resistant. The white man thinks he sees everything I do. He is wrong. He sees my movements. He does not see my intentions. He sees compliance. He does not see strategy, and that blindness is the opening I need. My father said some moments decide who you become. I feel that moment approaching, and I know already what I will choose 7 if the cost is everything. I sense frustration from those who expect access during the 9th week. The changes I have made, the locked doors, the adjusted routines, my constant presence are creating obstacles that someone finds inconvenient. I do not see the frustration directly, but I feel it in the atmosphere of the house, in how the master's questions become sharper, in how certain servants avoid my eyes, and how footsteps in the hallway at night become heavier, mighty insistent. I remain present, calm, unmoving in my vigilance. I do not explain my actions. I do not justify the locked doors or my positioning. I simply continue, day after day, night after night. When questioned about why a door is locked, I say, for the child's safety. Sir, when asked why I am in the hallway at unusual hours, I say, ensuring she sleeps peacefully. Sir, every answer is technically true. Every answer serves my actual purpose, while appearing to serve the stated purpose. The memory reminds me, strength is restraint. My uncle taught me this with metalwork. The strongest blade is not the one that cuts wildest. The strongest blade is the one that cuts precisely where intended and stops exactly where it should. Strength is not maximum force. Strength is controlled force. Applied exactly, withheld exactly. Measured according to need rather than capacity. I am being strong now by restraining myself, by not confronting, by not accusing, by not acting beyond what is necessary. Pressure increases in the house. I feel it building. See it in tightened faces and clipped words and doors closed more firmly than before. Something must give. Someone must act. The tension cannot sustain itself indefinitely. I prepare for that moment by staying exactly as I am. Present, watchful, ready. The master intervenes during the 10th week. Confused by resistance he cannot name, he summons me to his study. He sits behind his desk. He does not ask me to sit. I stand. The household routines have changed, he says. His voice carries irritation wrapped in authority. Doors that should remain unlocked are locked. You are wandering hallways at inappropriate hours. I am protecting your daughter, sir, I say. As instructed. From what? He asks. The question is sharp, demanding. I say nothing beyond what duty requires. From any harm, sir. What harm? He presses. Has something specific occurred? I meet his eyes briefly, then lower my gaze. I am simply being thorough, sir. He cannot confront what I am actually doing because confronting it would require naming the threat I am protecting against. And naming that threat would require acknowledging it exists, which he cannot or will not do. His authority meets a wall he cannot strike. He cannot punish me for protecting his daughter too well. Cannot order me to be less vigilant without revealing that vigilance is inconvenient for reasons he dare not speak. He dismisses me with frustration, visible in how he waves his hand. Continue your duties, but do not disrupt the household. Yes, sir, I say. Control begins to slip from his hands into mine in that moment. Not because I have seized it, but because he has lost it. Because he cannot command what he cannot name, cannot control what he will not acknowledge, cannot manage a situation he refuses to confront directly. The white man thinks authority equals power. He is hongi. Authority is just permission. Power is action. And I am acting while he is merely authorizing. The night stretches longer than intended during the 11th week, when the confrontation finally comes. I am in my room adjacent to the child's chamber. The door between our rooms is open. She sleeps peacefully, unaware of the tension coiling through the house. Footsteps approach, not testing this time, not hesitating, moving with purpose and anger, barely restrained. Ah, istunji. I position myself in the doorway between my room and hers, not blocking entirely, but present, visible, undeniable. The figure appears in the hallway. I see him in lamplight filtering through windows. I do not name him here. Not his identity, not his relationship to this household, but I see him clearly. He sees me. He stops. Move, he says. His voice is low, commanding, expecting obedience. I do not move. I said move. Boy, I remain exactly where I am. Just present, not a wall that is made of flesh instead of wood, but is equally immovable. He steps closer. He is taller than me, heavier. He carries the confidence of someone who has never been truly refused. I maintain position until exhaustion defeats intent. Not his exhaustion, his frustration. His inability to proceed without creating a scene that would wake the household. Without violence that would leave evidence. Without confrontation that would force acknowledgement of what he intended. He cannot move me without revealing why he wants to move me. Cannot explain why he needs access to a child's room at night. Cannot justify his presence in terms that would not expose him. So he stands. He stares. He radiates anger and thwarted intention. And I stand. I watch. I do not speak. I do not explain. I do not accuse. I simply remain. The threat dissolves without confrontation as minutes stretch and he realizes I will not move. That creating the disturbance necessary to move me would cost more than withdrawing. He turns. He walks away. His footsteps are heavy with fury, but also with defeat. Dawn approaches quietly through windows. The child never wakes. The household never stirs. Nothing happened, except everything happened. I protected her, not with violence, not with accusation, not with trauma. That would become story, but with presence, with hefusao, with the simple, undeniable fact of my body standing between threat and child. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there, warm from my body heat, solid, real. A reminder that I did what my father taught me to do. I chose right over safe. I chose protection over compliance. In my land, this meant becoming a man, not through violence, not through domination, but through taking responsibility for something sacred and refusing to yield it to those who would profane it. No incident is recorded the next morning. Nothing is written in household logs. Nothing is reported to authorities. Nothing is discussed at breakfast or acknowledged in any official capacity. No accusation can be made because making an accusation would require explaining what was prevented, why someone was approaching a child's room, what was intended, what was stopped. The silence protects everyone, but mostly it protects him, the one who retreated, the one whose intentions were interrupted. I understand I have disrupted something fragile, the child's safety, but the household's careful ignorance. They knew, all of them, master and mistress and servants, they knew the danger existed. They positioned me as barrier without naming what I was barrier against, and I succeeded. But success makes their knowledge undeniable, makes their complicity visible, makes their choice to use me rather than address the threat directly shameful. Consequences are inevitable now. Not punishment for what I did, but removal for what I revealed. I showed them they knew. I forced acknowledgement through successful protection. I made their willful ignorance impossible to maintain. That cannot be forgiven. Not because I failed, because I succeeded in ways that expose them. Mourning brings tension without explanation during the 12th week. The master avoids me. The mistress avoids me. The child is kept closer to her mother. I am given tasks that move me away from the upper floors, away from bedrooms, away from the center of household life. I observe avoidance where authority once stood firm. Before, the master would command directly, would look at me while giving instructions, would engage with the basic mechanics of ownership and control. Now he sends messages through servants. He looks past me when we are in the same room. He treats me as if I am somehow contaminated by what I prevented. The master cannot speak what failed, because speaking it would require acknowledging what was attempted. He cannot say, "You prevented something terrible." Cannot say, "Thank you for protecting my daughter from danger I refused to address." Cannot say anything that would force him to confront his own failure and complicity. Silence protects me, for now. But the protection is temporary. I am a living reminder of something they want to forget. And reminders do not last long in households that require forgetting to function. The white man thinks silence erases truth. He is wrong. Silence just postpones reckoning. I am watched more closely during the 13th week, yet trusted less. Servants observe me with something between respect and fear. They know something happened. They do not know exactly what, but they know I stood against something powerful. And survival in this household means not standing against power. I altered nothing in my behavior. I continue my duties. I remain professional. I show no pride in what I did, no satisfaction, no expectation of gratitude or acknowledgement. I am exactly as I was before, except everything has changed. A memory warns. Success invites danger. My uncle told me about a craftsman who created a blade so perfect, so superior to anything the chief owned, that the chief felt threatened by the craftsman's skill. The blade was confiscated. The craftsman was sent away. Excellence that surpasses the master becomes dangerous to the master, my uncle said, not because excellence is threatening, but because it reveals the master's mediocrity. I have revealed something through my success, not my excellence, my conscience. I showed that I have moral agency independent of their commands, that I can choose right action, even when it conflicts with their convenience. That makes me dangerous, not because I am violent, because I am autonomous in ways that property should not be autonomous. I remain still, knowing that stillness will not save me, but hoping it might delay what is coming. A decision is made without my presence during the 14th week. I learn of it when the overseer summons me to the yard. He tells me I am being reassigned. Back to the fields. Immediately. No explanation. No acknowledgement of service rendered. No transition period. Just removal. Swift. Final. The house exhales as I leave. I feel it. The tension releasing. The relief spreading. The household returning to its preferred state of willful ignorance. Now that the reminder of their knowledge has been removed, they can forget again. can pretend the danger never existed, can return to routines that do not require them to confront uncomfortable truths. Distance becomes punishment without being named as such. Not punishment for wrongdoing, punishment for doing right in ways that made wrong visible. Punishment for succeeding at a duty they gave me but never intended me to take seriously enough to disrupt their careful denial. I do not protest. I do not ask questions. I gather my few possessions. I walk back across the yard toward the quarters I left weeks ago. The child watches from a window. I see her small face pressed against glass. She does not wave. I do not look up long enough to encourage it. This is not my child, not my family. I protected her because protection was right. But she is not mine to mourn leaving. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket. It is still there, heavy with something new now. Not just memory of my uncle in my village, but memory of this night, this choice, this moment when I stood between harm and innocence and refused to move. That memory will stay with me, will matter, will mean something, even if no one else knows or acknowledges it. I returned to labor during the 15th week, carrying unseen consequences. My body returns to field work. The physical motions, the sun and soil and exhaustion that defined my existence before the house. But I am different now, changed by what I did, by what I chose, by the understanding that I can act according to conscience even within bondage. Others sense something but know nothing specific. Workers in the field notice I am quieter than before. Mori internao. They ask no questions, because questions about time in the main house are dangerous. But they watch me with curiosity and perhaps some respect for whatever I survived. I keep the truth contained, not because I am ashamed, but because speaking it serves no purpose, would help no one, would endanger the child by making the threat more widely known, would endanger me by making my resistance more visible. Survival requires restraint again, different restraint than before. Not restraint of action, but restraint of speech. In my land, this meant wisdom accumulated. Warriors spoke of battles, but the wise ones spoke carefully. They knew which stories to tell and which to keep, which truths to share and which to carry alone. I carry this truth alone. For now, perhaps forever, the white man thinks silence means nothing happened. He is wrong. Silence means something happened that he cannot afford to acknowledge. I do not forget. I never forget. I hear rumors twisted into safer shapes during the following months. Stories circulate about why I was reassigned. Each version protects the household more than the last. He was too familiar with the child. He overstepped his position. He made the mistress uncomfortable. None reach the truth. None come close to what actually occurred. Each story serves the same function explained in my removal, without acknowledging what I prevented. I realize the system protects itself by forgetting deliberately. Not accidental forgetting, strategic forgetting. The kind that requires active reshaping of narrative. That requires consensus among those who know to tell the same protective lies. Memory becomes my burden alone. I am the only one who will remember accurately. The child is too young to understand. The servants know fragments, but not the whole. The master and mistress will reshape their own memories to remove their complicity. I alone carry the full truth. What was threatened? What was prevented? What was sacrificed to maintain the illusion that nothing happened? This weight is heavier than chains. Chains mark the body. This marks the soul. The knowledge that I acted rightly and was punished for it, that I saved a child and was discarded for the saving. But I carry it because someone must, because truth deserves witness, even when witness is silent. Because what happened matters, even if no record exists beyond my memory. I reflect on the cost of unseen resistance during the years that follow. I remain enslaved. I remain in fields. I remain under the same master who removed me from his house rather than acknowledge what I did there. Freedom is delayed, perhaps forever delayed. My act of conscience did not win my liberty, did not earn gratitude, did not change my fundamental condition, but conscience is intact. I know what I did. I know why I did it. I know that when tested, when faced with a choice between obedience and protection, between compliance and conscience, I chose right. That knowledge sustains me through days that would otherwise be unbearable, through labor that breaks through degradation that breaks spirits. I am intact in ways that matter more than physical freedom. I am whole in the place where it counts most. The past confirms the choice was right, even if the consequences were hard. My father was right. Some moments decide who you become. That night, in the hallway standing between threat and child, decided who I am. In ways that bondage cannot touch. I am someone who protects innocence when able, someone who acts according to conscience, regardless of cost, someone who stands firm when standing matters. Slavery can own my body. It cannot own that truth about me. I endure because endurance is what remains available to me. Not passive endurance, active endurance. Endurance with purpose, with dignity. With the knowledge that I have acted according to principles larger than survival, I observed the master from afar during the following years, diminished in ways others might not notice. He is still master, still wealthy, still powerful in all the ways that matter legally and socially, but he is smaller somehow, less certain, less comfortable in his own authority. I see it in how he avoids certain rooms in his house, how he drinks more, how his shoulders curve forward slightly, how he ages faster than years alone would explain. His power remains intact, but certainty's gone. He knows what he failed to prevent, knows what he used me to address rather than addressing himself, knows that his daughter's safety came from a slave's conscience rather than his own courage. That knowledge eats at him. I see it. I do not enjoy seeing it. I take no satisfaction in his diminishment. But I recognize it, and I understand it. I recognize victory does not always look like escape. Sometimes victory is internal, personal, spiritual. It is knowing you acted rightly when wrong was easier, knowing you protected what deserved protection, knowing you stood when standing mattered. I did not escape. I did not win freedom. I did not receive acknowledgement or reward, but I won something more essential. I won confirmation that I am more than what slavery tries to make me. That conscience survives bondage. That moral agency persists, even when legal agency is denied. The reckoning was internal, not external. The master reckons with his failure privately. I reckon with my choice privately. The child grows up not knowing what was prevented. The household continues as if nothing occurred. But something did occur. And those of us who were there know it, even if we never speak it. That knowing is the victory. Small, invisible, but real. I speak now, decades later, because silence once saved a life. I maintained silence then, told no stories, made no accusations, spoke no truth that would endanger the child or myself or the fragile peace that followed my removal. But time has passed. The child is grown. The master is dead. The household is scattered. The danger is past. And truth demands a witness. Even years later, I witnessed something important. I did something important. Not for recognition, not for reward, but because it was right. And rightness deserves testimony, even when delayed. Even when the testimony serves no practical purpose. Even when no one's safety depends on the silence anymore. I carry the memory forward so someone knows. Someone knows that enslaved people have conscience, have moral agency, have the capacity to choose right over convenient, to choose protection over compliance, to choose principle over survival. Someone knows that we are more than what we are forced to be, that we contain multitudes, that we act from values that transcend our condition. The white man thinks we are what he makes us. He is wrong. We are what we choose within the constraints he imposes, and those choices reveal who we actually are, more than our bondage reveals anything. I chose to protect a child at cost to myself. That choice defines me more than being enslaved defines me. The story ends where survival continues. I survived that night. I survived the removal. I survived the years that followed. I survived to speak this testimony. The child survived because I stood in a doorway and refused to move. She lived her life, not knowing what was prevented. That is, as it should be. Innocence preserved does not need to know what preserved it. The master died with his guilt That is between him and whatever judgment he faces beyond this life. Not my concern, not my burden. I lived. I remembered. I speak now. That is enough. That is victory. That is the truth that deserves witness. My hand finds the bronze weight in my pocket one final time. It is still there, worn smooth by decades of handling, warm from my body, heavy with meaning accumulated through years. It reminds me of my uncle, of my father, of my village, of who I was before bondage, of who I remained during bondage, of who I am now that bondage has ended. I am Kofi. I am craftsman's nephew. I am father's son. I am guardian who stood firm. I am witness who speaks truth, delayed but not diminished. The white man thought he knew me. He was wrong. He knew my condition. He never knew my character. My character was revealed in a hallway at night when I chose conscience over obedience, when I stood between harm and innocence, when I refused to move regardless of cost. That is who I am. That is what I testify to. That is the truth that survives when everything else is forgotten. I stood. I protected. I endured. I remember. I speak. That is the testimony. That is the witness. That is the truth.